So glad to have you here on this March Madness Wednesday. It is National Syracuse Orange Day. I'm only saying it because I went to Syracuse. No one else in this town cares. But I just want to recognize that it's my college's special National Syracuse Orange Day today, March 24th. She is joining me for the very first time. She's got so much to talk about, such an interesting, successful, and talented person. And thank goodness that we have a UCLA connection here in San Luis Obispo. That's how I found this woman. She is Natasha Watley, an Olympian, Pan Am gold champion, NCAA champion softball player, joining the CJ Silas Show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we were able to connect. Thanks for having me.
It's interesting. I watched the TED Talk. I went to your website, which is really wonderful. Whoever designed your website did a great job. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, how did I get her on my show? She is badass. And then I realized that Gina, we call her Puppy here at Cal Poly. She's one of the assistant softball coaches, and she's such a honk for UCLA. You know that, and she's been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and you've known her. And I said, could I ever get her? And she's like, of course. Give me a minute. I'm going to send you her email.
So easy. No, and Puppy is one of my favorite people in the whole entire world, and honestly has been one of the, I mean, if you could imagine a coach who could be one of the best supporters and then turn into, like, your life cheerleader and, like, one of your best friends, that is Puppy, and definitely we call her Puppy,
right.
Her nickname.
Well, where did she get it? I don't know if I remember how she got this.
Well, because she has big feet and she's short. So she's a puppy. So that's exactly how she got her nickname. So hilarious.
And she loves dogs. She loves my dog, Mr. Robinson. She loves him. Yes, she does. So Natasha Watley, you can find her a couple places, NatashaWatley.com or Natasha Watley 29 on social media. She's joining the CJ Silas Show. And the reason I wanted to talk to you is we decided on the CJ Silas Show that we were going to extend Black History Month for the entire year. So every week we are honoring and celebrating someone in the world of Black history, whether it's, mostly sports, but sometimes like we do Quincy Jones, we've done Bob Marley, and we're doing Black artists and athletes and coaches that are born in that month. So like March, we're doing mostly people born in this month. But softball's going on right now, and Jenny Condon is also a friend of the CJ Silas Show. And we were talking about this in February, and I said, I got to extend this. I want to make this go for, I want to do 2021. It's Black History Year on the CJ Silas Show. She says, you've got to talk to Natasha Watley. So that's how it all started. And I want to hear what you're doing, because I know you're coaching and you're doing some speaking and you're helping market athletes and kind of try to get Black representation better at the high school level, at the in the inner city. So let's start with that. When you retired, what made you want to head in that direction with your career?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, the main thing is the simple fact of wanting to leave the sport better than I found it. As a player, I think that I was able to accomplish that in terms of just being able, more opportunities, more exposure for being an athlete. But I really found that the work that I was doing as a player of doing things in the community and growing the representation in our sport and providing more opportunities, providing more access, that's been the most fulfilling job ever. And so I created my nonprofit, Natasha Watley Foundation, in 2009. So I kind of was doing it as I was still playing. And so since I've retired, I've been able to kind of go all in and do a little bit more, which has actually been super fulfilling. But I'm doing so many things. I mean, a lot of things are in the sport. I'm coaching in Japan, which is I have a long commute. So I'm there 3 weeks to a month at a time. I'm coaching the team that I played professionally for. I'm doing so much, CJ. I don't know where to begin. And also, I teach triple threats virtually. So triple threats in the softball world are girls who can slap hit, and that's what we call it if you've ever watched softball and you're running up to the ball and you're swinging at it. So we call those triple threats girls who can slap, hit, and bunt. And so I try to empower that community and make sure that art doesn't die in our sport. And I'm doing house flipping. I'm flipping 2 houses right now.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Boyfriend, I know. So we could go down that road if you want to go. Literally doing a lot of things and just having fun, to be honest, and super grateful that I still have the opportunity to stay within the sport as well.
Born and raised in Irvine, went to UCLA, played on the team that won the national championship in 2003. She's a 2-time Pan Am gold medal winner, a 3-time world champion, and a 4-time World Cup champion, as well as Olympic gold and Olympic silver with the U.S. softball team. She is Natasha Watley on the CJ Silas Show. Diamond sports, for some reason, baseball and softball, just don't seem to be getting the black players. Whether they ever really had a big group, it seems to be actually decreasing. What can we do about it?
Well, there's a lot that we can do about it. I mean, well, you could support the Natasha Watley Foundation, but I mean, honestly, I think the biggest thing is providing the access. And so in those communities, I think there's a number of reasons why. I mean, it just starting with equipment being expensive. And then I think it's a generational thing where older generations or parents may have not necessarily thought that diamond sports are a thing for people of color. And so I think that that's been really the work that we're doing, is trying to let young girls know that softball is a sport for them, baseball as well. So I think the things that we can continue to do is what we're trying to do is lower that barrier, and we're bringing the game to them, you know, and we're saying we're bringing the coaching, the resources, and just really trying to open the doors of accessibility to the game and not let there be any reasons why they can't just learn and hopefully fall in love and have a journey of playing the sport of softball.
I remember recently when the Scrapyard Dogs team pretty much walked off the field after a political tweet happened, and there was one woman on the team that was black, and I think it was Kiki Stokes, and she's really shifted and made a horrible situation and turned it into something wonderful, being a part of the This Is Us softball team that is player-owned. She says things like you reduce black players to their physical characteristics or athletic ability, then you'll never be able to market them the way you market white athletes. Representation is important. In a sport, that means everything to little girls looking for role models. How can we, as a society, with the Natasha Watley Foundation, put the sport of softball in front of more black young girls?
Well, I think what you just said, when we're talking about if we're in a position to market athletes, let's market all athletes of color. I mean, not all athletes, but also throw in athletes of color as well, because I think as a young girl, especially when we're flipping through magazines, we're flipping through now social media, we're searching for things that we can relate to. We're searching for people who look like us. So if I see a African-American girl who's playing softball and excelling, and that's what's being marketed, like, wow, that's something that I can see, I can believe, if I can see it, I can be it. But I think in just like those positions, you know, I think that's one simple thing. It's just the imagery. Growing up, if you asked me what the typical softball player looked like, I would have told you a white girl, a blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. And so I think that, you know, now the sport, we have diversified and yeah, we're not there. But definitely the numbers are growing. And so I think that the women who are playing this game need to be reflected in all avenues. And that's, you know, the exposure on TV, in ads, in magazines, on social media. I think that needs to be the narrative that's being told and being shown. And so that young girls can actually see that this game is welcoming for them as well.
She's an Olympian. She's a Hall of Famer at UCLA. She's an NCAA champion. She played professionally in Japan and the United States. Softball player Natasha Watley on the CJ Silas Show. How do you react when women like Kiki Stokes or Aaliyah Jordan say that you were the reason they played softball?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is it's overwhelming, and you know, as of recent, listening to a lot of the girls that played in the Pro League Athletes Unlimited this summer, they did a docuseries, and most of them all said the same thing. And when I hear that, it's humbling, it's overwhelming, but then it makes me realize more than ever how important representation is. And why is it that they have gravitated towards me being their role model? It's the simple fact of me looking like them. And so I think that's what makes the drive and for the work that I'm doing and even now what they're doing. Now they're role models, and now Kiki doing a lot, like you said, with This Is Us, and just being able to be that image for that next generation, because the only way we're going to continue to diversify our sport and continue to grow it on that level is for young girls that are, starting to get into sports, for them to actually to see that and to have something to shoot for, have something to model their game after. And so I think it's just really important, because it's a testament to what representation means, and that it really does matter.
You can find her at NatashaWatley.com, also on social media at Natasha Watley 29. She started the Natasha Watley Foundation, which teaches softball but opens up softball to inner city girls and brings a positive alternative to daily struggles in low-income households. She's an Olympian. She's just amazing, and she's joining the CJ Silas Show. We talk about what happened with the Scrapyard Dogs. If you don't know the story, look it up. I don't even want to talk about it. But we talk about what women have gone through. And then when I'm watching your TED Talk and reading more about you and hearing that you didn't see overt racism in your career, but there were a lot of microaggressions, things that you look back at now and you're like, oh, that's what that was. How do you talk to young people about that and standing up for themselves in this day?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I regret the most, and obviously I think the first thing is recognizing, like you said, because, when I look back, I'm like, okay. But now that I'm older, and if I were able to go back and do those situations over again, the things that I'm teaching young ladies now is to use their voice. And that is one thing that I wish that I would have done more. And I thought, especially, when I was playing on the national team, I thought me physically being an African-American woman, that was enough, exactly what you said, that those young girls, that they looked up to me because they saw me and they were able to relate. And so I thought that was enough. But there were so many instances, and that's a whole nother day that we can spend on those. But, just even talking about marketing dollars and what I was told and those things, like if I were to actually go back and maybe fight for what was really right instead of just, putting my head down and doing the work and not wanting to disrupt or disturb, because I didn't want that to hinder what was going on the field, and so I am really pushing young girls to be an advocate for themselves, to speak up, to be their own cheerleader, and if something is not right, to feel comfortable in all situations, to be able to just voice their opinion and voice and speak up for themselves, because I think it's super important for people to hear that, because things will continue on in the same pattern, as we know, if you don't speak up and if you don't speak up for yourself. So that is one of the biggest things that I am stressing to young girls is your voice is powerful, use it, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Early in the show, I was talking about the disparity in the weight rooms at the NCAA tournaments. I don't know if you saw that story. The men's weight room is like, a professional, huge gym with every piece of equipment needed, all the cardio equipment, and then the women got a rack of weights and some yoga mats. And a couple people, Sally Jenkins, spoke out about it, Dawn Staley, Muffet McGraw, women in this business saying this has been going on for years. When you saw that story, did it trigger you, or how did you feel when you heard that?
It's so crazy, because it's this weird reaction that I had, because I wasn't shocked, because when I went through college, that was my experience. And now on the other side, now that I've retired or I'm out of college, I look back and I think, like, gosh, the game has grown so much. Female athletes, the opportunity for them collegiately, it's grown so much. So I have that. And then when you see something like that, it triggered like, oh, I'm used to that because that's what I experienced. But then then you have to pinch yourself like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what we're still dealing with. And this is what we're still having. The disparities are so obvious, and that they're still there. And even something so simple as to a weight room. that's something that we still have to talk about, and then you get frustrated and you go down this whole road of frustration and how are we still here? And I think it's kind of a culmination, a mix of feelings of, oh gosh, well that's how it's always been, but gosh, man, we're still here. Like we're not out of this, and so there's still so much work to do on that front. For sure.
We're begging for progress in so many aspects of life as women. She was the first black player in Olympics with the USA softball team. She's an Olympian. She's a national champion. And she is Natasha Watley joining the CJ Silas Show. Before I let you go, softball is back. You were in the last Olympics where there was softball, which was in 2008 when the U.S. won the silver medal. Softball is back in the 2020 Olympics that are supposed to happen this summer. But there's no guarantee that it's coming back in 2024. It's almost like, for some reason, softball is the wicked stepchild of other sports. I just don't understand it. And is there any way that what can we do, actually, to continue to have softball in the Olympics? Why do we keep having to fight to keep it in there?
I know. Well, it's all political. And honestly, I mean, there's been so many things that we have done on the front lines of trying to get it back. And it just honestly comes down to votes, IOC votes. And so, and the reason why it's back in what was 2020, but this year in 2021 is because the host country gets to pick their sport. And so in Japan, baseball, softball is a big, huge sport. And so that's the sport they chose to put back in. So 2028, so we're definitely out for 2024, but 2028, it's not a voted sport on the docket, which we know, but it could be voted in for LA for one of the sports that they pick. So we're hoping 2028 that we're back in. Honestly, great question on what we could do. I'm not even sure of that answer, and I wish I had that answer,
right.
But I feel like there's not much that we can do except for cross our fingers and hope that it gets back in.
I want to vote, but I don't have one. Paris in 2024, they didn't vote softball in, I guess. Okay, fine, Frenchies. Whatever. Okay, we'll tolerate that. Back in the U.S., in L.A., gosh, I forgot, 2028. What do you think? Do you think we're going to have we're really going to have an Olympics this year? I know we're not going to have any fans, but do you think it's really going to happen?
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen. So, I travel back and forth to Japan, and I was just there in February, and they're pretty open and very precautious, and, they're very conservative, and everybody is doing all the things and wearing the mask and doing all the things. So I feel, and my team that I coach for, they're playing just no fans in the stands. And so I think that they're going to mirror the same thing. And I think that the games will happen, but as we know, there will be no fans, but, which I think will be fine. And I think it'll still, I hope it'll be fine. I think that, the Olympics are definitely a world event that we all tune into. And just without the fans, I think it'll be a different feel. But when you're competing, if you're a true competitor, it doesn't matter who's in the stands. You're still fighting for that gold. And so I still think we'll see some great competition for sure.
Do you get to go? Are you going to be there?
I'm gonna see about it. I have a visa and I can go because I have a working visa. My only question is, can I get a ticket to the game? So
yeah.
But if I can, I am so in, and it'll be my first time being a spectator at the Olympics. So
wow.
I definitely want to try.
There's got to be some sort of coaching role you could get. Somebody else. Hey, Natasha Watley's free. She's free. She's free in June, July, and she doesn't mind going to Japan. Okay, maybe we'll get you on some sort of coaching staff. Hey, I appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thanks for taking my call. Thanks for coming on the CJ Silas Show. And if you're cool with it, we will call you during the Olympics when the softball's going on, whether you're there or you're here, and we'll get your take on how the U.S. is doing in the 2020 Olympics.
I would love it. Please call me, and thank you so much for having me, and such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natasha. She is Natasha Watley, Olympian, NCAA champ, just a badass human. You can find her at Natasha Watley 29 and NatashaWatley.com. Thanks again, sister. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.